Yeah, Chris. Happy Valentine's Day.
Almost certainly Peter Griffin's favorite child, Chris Griffin is a lovable, if slightly unstable kid who's had relationship experience beyond his years. But being both a young teenage boy and a resident of Quahog, that makes a chaotic combo as far as love is concerned, from high school bullies to substitute teachers to Taylor Swift. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Bench, and these are Chris Griffin's love interest. Healthy to toxic to disturbing. Be sure to lock your closet doors so the evil monkey doesn't get you. We're kicking off the healthy relationships. Taking our gold medal of health is Sam. Debuting in the episode To Live and Die in Dixie, Sam is Chris's first major love interest. They hit it off and enjoy wholesome childhood activities like skipping stones, poking dead bodies with a stick, and what? Well, the point is they get along well. But when Sam kisses Chris, Chris is horrified, thinking that Sam is a boy due to her tomboyish appearance. Even this doesn't deter their friendship though, and when Chris discovers she's a girl, he's more than happy to pursue a relationship.
You're a girl?
Of course I am.
Sam is equally willing, not minding Chris's extreme awkwardness and even encouraging him to just talk to her like she's a boy. Sadly, they part ways when the Griffins move back to Quahog, but they promise to keep in touch. Maybe we'll see Sam again one day. There's definitely a spark between these two, and she's easily the healthiest relationship Chris has ever had. For our next entry, we're going from the south to the south of the border to visit Isabella. Though their meeting was rather awkward, consisting of her confronting Chris for stealing her bikini top at a local pool, this sweet immigrant from Mexico made good company for Chris. They hit it off and bond naturally, with Chris not being swayed by the fact that she has 2 babies. When it comes out that Isabella is being deported, she entrusts the kids to Chris, and despite Lois's reservations, he does a great job taking care of them, even protecting them from coyotes later on when the Griffins head to Mexico to try and get Isabella out. Sadly, Chris decides to part ways with Isabella, realizing that although he's able to take care of babies when push comes to shove, he's not ready for it.
I'm too young to be taking on this much responsibility.
But the split was amicable, and the whole ordeal showed the best parts of Chris's character, except for the whole stealing her bikini top thing, which is practically the only reason it isn't number 1. But hey, the teenage years are the season for awkwardness. Just look at Chris's time with Barbara, one of his first crushes in the series. She appears in To Love and Die in Dixie, and seems to be on pretty friendly terms with Chris. She invites him to her birthday party and enjoys his sense of humor. Chris likes her enough to work a paper route to buy her a gift with his own money, a nice bottle of perfume, which he sprays right into her eye, immediately ruining his chances with her. Keep trying, Chris. You'll get it right eventually. It sure seems like you've improved since then. At least, after all, you managed to date a Tim Hortons model named Jennifer. She has quite possibly the least screen time out of anyone on our list, only appearing at the very end of the episode, girlfriend, eh? Little's known about her, or about her relationship with Chris. All we know is that they met at camp. Peter didn't believe she existed at first, and she managed to make Chris a more thoughtful person all around, with him giving his old man some tips, much to his chagrin. After Peter calls Chris a fat loser, he eventually reveals that he's deeply insecure, because he himself was once a fat loser, and Chris, being the total sweetheart he is, accepts Peter's honestly crappy apology and pretends Jennifer doesn't exist, so his dad's ego won't be bruised further. Peter truly doesn't deserve Chris. His time with Jennifer might not be all too detailed, but it's clear they genuinely cared for each other, and ultimately, their relationship proved how much of a nice guy Chris is. Though, the fact that his first instinct on the ride home was to ask her for nudes is a little superficial, which is why she isn't any higher. Thankfully, Chris isn't all that superficial at heart. He's even an activist sometimes, like when he dated Pam. In the episode Baby Got Black, it seems like everyone's determined to find something wrong with Chris's relationship with Jerome's daughter, Pam. From Jerome refusing to allow his daughter to date a white guy, to Peter straight up asking if he minds that she's black, the world is against them. Regardless, they genuinely like each other, and despite Jerome's grievances, they want a date. Ultimately, Jerome relents and allows the relationship to continue. Like most of the relationships on this list, that's where the timeline ends. But at least things were pretty consistently okay here. Nothing special, but nothing harmful. And of course, rounding out Chris's healthy romances is that of Herbert's grandniece Sandy. What? Who do you think we were gonna put here? We didn't see much of Sandy. She only appears in Valentine's Day in Quahog and has an innocent crush on Chris. They enjoy some popsicles together after Herbert helps her ask Chris out.
I'm kind of a lonely old man.
Really?
But while this is sweet, we have to place this entry a little bit lower, due to the fact that Herbert gives her the exact words to say, and seems to be trying to live out his fantasy of dating Chris through her, but we'll get to him later. These next few relationships fall into a more disputable area, being neither fully healthy nor exactly toxic per se. These relationships fall in the gray area. First in this category is Luka. Chris sure has a way of winning the hearts of girls in other countries. In the episode Jungle Love, Chris joins the Peace Corps to avoid freshman hazing at James Woods High and quickly becomes popular with the locals. He becomes especially popular with Luka, the daughter of Chief Olecki, and we can't blame her for falling for him, looking at Chris's utterly unrivaled dance skills. But while things seem innocent at first, we have to dock some points for the misunderstanding between them, which results in them being married after the aforementioned dance performance. The Griffins object to the marriage, and Chris ends up leaving once he fully realizes that he's been taking advantage of the locals to escape his own issues. It turns out this was definitely the right call, since they seemed happy to bully him too once they realized he was a freshman. Now, this video is also going to double as a relationship advice session for our viewers, so here's a big tip. Whatever you do, don't follow Peter's advice. Just look what happened with Anna. Chris met this cute veterinarian girl and fell in love with her pretty much instantly. Their relationship actually goes smoothly at first, with Chris being respectful and considerate all around. Unfortunately, in a moment of sheer brilliance, Peter advises his naive son that he's making a mistake by treating his lady as a human being.
If you want to get anywhere with a chick, you can't treat him too nice-like.
Chris takes this to heart and begins to treat Anna like absolute garbage, effectively ruining their relationship. As sad as this is, we have two reasons for not quite calling this a toxic relationship. For one, Chris does apologize to Anna, ignoring Peter's terrible advice and making amends for his mean behavior. The other reason, going hand in hand, is that Chris wasn't malicious. He just trusted his idiotic father's advice. They even go on another date at the end of the episode, showing that they're at least on decent terms. Though, since Anna hasn't shown up since, we have to wonder how that second date went, leaving her right in the middle of our list. But we certainly won't have to wonder about any second dates for the next section. These are the toxic relationships. We're kicking things off with Alyssa. Another early season's love interest, Alyssa is a young Republican club member and a right-wing activist. In a display of truly awful timing, Chris connects with her and the club, just as Mayor Adam West goes after gay marriage to distract from the scandal of using taxpayers' money to build a statue of Diggum, the Sugar Smacks frog. She uses Chris's feelings for her to rope him into the Young Republicans Club and brainwashes him into supporting Mayor West's ban. Chris isn't innocent either, though, letting Brian potentially die on his hill for the prospect of touching some boobs.
I think I made Brian crazy.
But at least nothing terrible happened between these two, and honestly, none of this would have happened if the town had appreciated that beautiful statue. It's actually pretty crazy how close things came to working out between Chris and Connie D'Amico, resident mean girl of James Woods High. While she's most memorable for being a constant tormentor of Meg alongside the other popular kids, in this episode, she's given a rare sympathetic role. Having pumped and dumped every remotely popular guy in the school, Connie decides to date Chris as a last resort. This is only to find out that Chris is the closest thing to a genuine guy Connie's ever known, and the two actually start to bond.
No guy's ever said anything that nice to me before.
This could have been a redemption arc for Connie. That is, had it not been for Chris screwing things up by cheating on her at a party with two other girls. Connie gets back at him by humiliating him by showing an embarrassing video to the whole school, ensuring that he won't have to worry about popularity going to his head again. But still, talk about a wasted opportunity. Moving on to Ellen. When Chris and Stewie get lost in the woods, Chris promises that he'll ask out Ellen, a girl at school who's nice to him. She also happens to have Down syndrome, leading to a very memorable musical number, and he manages to get a date with her. Unfortunately, it turns out that Ellen is only sweet on a surface level. She's actually bossy, mean, and mistreats Chris pretty badly, leading to Chris losing his temper and thereby ruining his chances with her. But honestly, the fact that Chris had the confidence to not only approach Ellen, but to stand up for himself when she turned out to be awful, speaks volumes to his character. Something looks oddly familiar about our next entry, Lindsay, but we can't put our finger on it. For some reason, we feel like she's gonna start playing the piano any second. But in any case, Lindsay is one of Chris's worst relationship endeavors. She shows practically no interest in Chris, despite his absolute love and devotion to her, and she ends up even cheating on him like it's nothing. Chris later remarks that he only dated her because she looked like his mother, which, as horrifying as that sounds, was actually just him believing that only someone as patient as Lois, who somehow stayed married to Peter, could possibly settle for Chris. If you thought any of the relationships before this were odd, remember the time Chris got a homecoming date with Taylor Swift? By far, one of the nicer celebrity portrayals on the show, Taylor Swift's time with Chris Griffin was surprisingly pleasant. She was nice enough to go to homecoming with him when he couldn't find a date, and dance like an unattended fire hose with him. Unfortunately, things go south when Taylor writes a breakup song about Chris, making a meme out of him on the internet. Ultimately, she tried to do the right thing by singing about how genuinely happy she is with Chris, but her fans sadly don't like her being happy as much as her writing breakup songs.
Well, I guess they're just used to me being sad and hurt by men.
Once again being a saint, Chris cruelly dumps Taylor so she can truthfully write a breakup song and retain her career. This one is interesting in that there isn't necessarily a bad guy here, things just didn't work out. As for why it's all the way down here, well, this episode came out in 2016, which would have made Taylor around 25 or 26, and Chris is 13. Yeah, while things were amicable between them, it's still really darn creepy. It's shocking that nobody even mentions it in the episode. He's a teenager and half her age. Maybe this wasn't as nice a betrayal as we let on. Poor Chris. If only he knew he deserved so much better, especially better than these bottom few who fall into the disturbing category. First, we have Kristen. While a newly gray-headed Peter is frolicking with Tom Tucker in hefty shades of gray, Chris is being asked out by an attractive girl named Kristen at the mall. When he shows zero interest, Brian and Stewie realize he's become so addicted to adult videos that real women don't do anything for him, so they help him overcome his problem, and eventually, he's ready for a date. Everything seems fine at first. Kristen is even nice enough to assure Chris that she and her popular friends aren't going to thrill kill them on their first date. It's oddly specific, but still, how nice of her. Though it is a strange coincidence that Chris isn't heard from again in the episode, and that there's a news article about a teen who was thrill-killed the very next morning. Crazy stuff, right? So we've got murder, and we've got creepy age gaps. Now, what if we were to combine those two into one entry? The silver medal of toxicity goes to Mrs. Lockhart. Chris's hot substitute teacher wins his heart very quickly, and she uses this to her advantage. She promises that she and Chris can run away together and get married. That is, if he helps her murder her husband.
I need you to kill my husband.
Mrs. Lockhart is a whole new level of evil compared to anyone we've discussed so far. She's a grown woman who's more than happy to manipulate a naive, mentally handicapped boy to take her husband out of the picture permanently. Thankfully, Chris didn't go through with it, but the fact that Mrs. Lockhart even put the option on the table is nothing short of horrifying. But she did go through with it by replacing her husband's breakfast with an angry live bear, showing that she was completely serious. It would be an easy choice for the gold medal, but come on, we couldn't possibly call this list complete without mentioning Herbert the pervert. Ever since his debut in season 3, Herbert has had eyes for Chris, who's shown varying degrees of ignorance and no degree of interest beyond sadly viewing Herbert as a good friend.
Get your fat ass back here.
This creep does everything from watching Chris through his window to fighting an evil tree for trying to hurt his man, trying to get him to give him a bath when he acts as their babysitter, and even has a whole musical number in his head in which they are married and have kids. Chris and Herbert have never been a couple, obviously, but in Herbert's sick, twisted mind, they're star-crossed lovers. Chris just doesn't know it yet.